The lantern is lit for tired souls. Come here, love. That's it. Deeper under the covers. Let the pillow take the weight of your head, the way it always has, the way it always will. Good. Now let your shoulders drop just a little more. I know they've been holding the world today. I can see the shape of it in the way you're lying there, still braced against tomorrow before it's even arrived. The day has been long, hasn't it? The hours, sharp-edged and relentless. Pressing against your temples, your chest, the soft places you try so hard to protect, everyone needed something from you. Every task multiplied into 3 more. And somewhere in all that noise and necessity, you forgot to breathe the way you used to, slow and deep, like you had all the time in the world. You gave everything away today. Every last piece. And now you're lying here wondering if there's anything left for yourself. There is, love. There is. But you don't have to hold it anymore tonight. Not here. Not with me. Breathe out now. Slowly. Let it go all the way down to the bottom of your lungs, and then release it like smoke, like dandelions, like every small sorrow you've been carrying in your pockets. That little sigh you just gave, I caught it in my hands and set it gently aside. It doesn't belong to you anymore tonight. It's okay to rest now. No one is asking anything more of you tonight. No emails, no decisions, no brave face, just this. The soft weight of the blanket settling over you like a blessing, the pillow cool against your cheek, and my voice, steady as the tide, promising you are held. Close your eyes, weary one. Let the room dissolve around you, the ceiling, the walls, the streetlights bleeding orange through the curtains. Let the racing thoughts slow to a whisper and then to nothing. There is only the low glow of this flame now, and the feeling of being wrapped in wool and warmth and something older than words. But tonight the lantern is lit for you, and it burns in a place you've almost forgotten, where someone keeps watch while you sleep. Tonight is the night of forgotten wishes. It happens only once every 7 years, on the longest night, the winter solstice, when the dark leans heaviest and the cold presses against the windows. And on this one sacred night, all the wishes you made as a child and then forgot in the hurried years of growing up, they come back. They return as glowing orbs of light, golden, rose-colored, soft as candle flame floating through the dark, searching for the ones who wished them. Searching for you, and there is someone who tends them. Someone who has waited, patient as the moon, for this night to arrive. Her name is Elara. She is the lighthouse keeper on the edge of the small coastal town where you grew up, or perhaps where you always wished you had. Every night for 23 years, she has climbed the spiral staircase to light the lantern that guides ships home through the fog. But tonight she lights it for something else, for wishes that never stopped believing in you. Come with me now. Let your body sink deeper into the mattress. Let the blanket settle heavier. You are walking with me now, though your body is still and safe in bed. We are crossing the threshold of the lighthouse door together, the old oak door with salt-worn paint and a brass handle warm to the touch. Inside you smell it immediately, candle wax and old wool. The faint sweetness of chamomile steeping in a chipped enamel cup. A trace of pipe smoke from decades ago, still lingering in the cedar beams. And beneath it all, the salt, the deep, clean scent of the sea breathing against stone. Rain begins to patter against the tall lighthouse windows, gentle, rhythmic, the kind of rain that feels like a lullaby. You can hear the distant murmur of waves, steady and eternal, and the creak of the old wooden stairs as Elara climbs toward the lantern room, wool socks soft on worn steps. You are safe here. The fire in the small hearth crackles low. The crescent moon lays a silver path across the floor, and somewhere above, the great lantern begins to turn slowly, slowly casting its beam out into the night, calling the lost wishes home. Elara is lighting it now, for them. For you? Let's go find what you thought was gone forever. Snow is falling tonight. Not the hurried kind that rushes to cover everything before morning, but the slow, deliberate kind flakes that land on Elara's dark wool coat like small white apologies. Each one melts after a moment, leaving tiny dark stars on the fabric. She stands outside the library door, one hand reaching into her pocket for the key, the other holding a canvas bag heavy with her thermos, and tonight's book, a collection of Mary Oliver poems she's been meaning to reread since autumn. The town is asleep behind her. Every window dark, except for the blue flicker of televisions and the orange glow of porch lights left on for cats or habits. The street is empty. The pharmacy closed hours ago. The diner's neon sign, Mabel's Est. 1962, has been switched off, leaving only the memory of its pink cursive hanging in the air. This is Elara's hour. The hour when the world stops asking and simply breathes. She finds the key, the big brass one that has worn a soft groove in her pocket lining over 23 years, and it is warm in her palm the way it always is, as though the library has been holding it close all day, waiting. She slides it into the lock. The mechanism turns with a familiar click that sounds like coming home. The heavy oak door swings inward, and immediately the smells rise to greet her. Vanilla paper aging gently on the shelves, the sweet resin of cedar wood that lines the old card catalog drawers, and already steeping on the circulation desk, where she left the pot on its warmer this morning, the faint, drowsy scent of chamomile rising in soft curls of steam. Elara steps inside and closes the door behind her. The sound it makes is the sound of a secret agreeing to keep itself. The overhead fluorescent lights are off, as they always are after closing. She would never turn them on. Their brightness is too sharp, too modern, too much like the world outside that runs on efficiency and urgency, and the belief that everything worth doing must be done quickly. No. In the hours after midnight, the library belongs to softer illuminations. The small green banker's lamp on the circulation desk glows steadily, casting a pool of emerald-tinted light across the scarred oak surface. And beyond it, drifting slowly between the stacks like living embers, are the fireflies. Yes, fireflies. You might think it strange fireflies in winter, fireflies indoors, but this library has always kept its own rules about what is possible. They appeared the first winter Elara worked here, on a night in January when the cold was so deep it made the old building creak and sigh. She had been dusting the poetry section, and one small golden light had drifted past her shoulder, then another, then a dozen more, slow and drowsy and warm, as though summer had sent its gentlest ambassadors to keep vigil through the dark months. She never questioned them. You don't question kindness when it arrives unexpectedly. They live here now, drifting between the stacks, settling on the spines of old hardcovers, pulsing gently like tiny heartbeats of light. On the loneliest nights, they gather near her as she works, as if they understand that tending forgotten things is heavy labor, and no one should have to do it entirely alone. Elara sets her bag down on the circulation desk. She unwinds her scarf, hand-knit, forest green, a gift from her mother before her mother forgot how to recognize her, and hangs it on the coat rack beside the door. Her coat follows, droplets of melted snow still clinging to the shoulders. She unlaces her boots, practical, black, worn soft, and steps out of them, leaving them on the rubber mat. Her wool socks whisper against the old wooden floorboards as she pads toward the desk. You know her, don't you? Not her name, perhaps. Not the particular shape of her face, or the way her hair is always coming loose from its bun by this hour, but you know the feeling of her. You have met her in yourself, the part that still wanders the corridors of childhood at 3 a.m., touching the places where wonder used to live. The part that remembers when books were doorways and blanket forts were castles, and the backyard at dusk was an entire world that belonged only to you. The part that aches when you realize you haven't felt that way in years. Maybe decades. Elara is 47 years old. She has been the night librarian of the Millbrook Public Library for 23 years, ever since the position was created, because the day librarian, Mrs. Chen, needed someone to process the evening returns and reshelve the books that came back smelling of coffee and dog-eared with love. It was supposed to be a temporary job. A few months while Elara figured out what she really wanted to do with her degree in comparative literature and her minor in art history and all those dreams she'd carried through college like precious, fragile birds. But temporary became a year. A year became 5, and 5 became 23. And somewhere in all that quiet, solitary work, the sorting, the shelving, the mending of torn pages with archival tape, the gentle coaxing of old spines back into alignment, she had looked up one night and realized she couldn't remember the last time she had wanted anything for herself that wasn't practical, sensible, small enough to fit into the margins of a life spent caring for the dreams other people had written down and then returned. She pours herself tea now. The pot is still warm on its electric base, the chamomile having steeped all day into a deep golden amber. She fills the chipped blue mug, the one with her faded lipstick on the rim from 1,000 solitary cups, the one that fits her hands exactly right and wraps both palms around it. The heat seeps into her fingers. The steam rises, carrying with it the scent of apple blossoms and honey and something older that has no name but feels like being tucked into bed by someone who loves you. She is tired tonight. More tired than usual. The kind of tired that sits behind the eyes and makes colors dull. The kind that turns even gentle tasks, opening a book, sweeping a floor, smiling at a patron asking where the bathroom is, into small acts of tremendous will. It's the tiredness that comes not from doing too much, but from doing the same quiet things for so long that you've forgotten why they once mattered. Or worse, you remember why they mattered, and you can feel how far away that mattering has drifted, like a boat unmoored in fog. She sets the mug down on the circulation desk and rests her forehead on her folded arms for just a moment. Just one moment. The wood is cool against her skin. The library is silent, except for the soft electric hum of the lamp and the distant whisper of snow against the tall windows. You know this tiredness, don't you? Love? It's the exhaustion that comes when adulthood finally wins its quiet war. When you realize you haven't drawn a picture, or climbed a tree, or believed in impossible things for so long that you're not sure you still know how. When every dream you once held has been folded smaller and smaller like origami in reverse until it fits into the practical pocket of tomorrow's responsibilities, and you tell yourself you'll take it out later, you'll unfold it when there's time. But there's never time, and eventually you forget it's even there. Elara lifts her head slowly. Her eyes feel sandy. Her neck aches in that way it does when she's been carrying tension in her shoulders without noticing. She picks up the mug again and takes a slow sip. The chamomile is almost too hot, but she drinks it anyway, letting it burn gently all the way down. A firefly drifts closer, as if concerned. Then another. They hover near her hands, pulsing their slow golden light on, off, like tiny synchronized breaths. One lands on the back of her hand. Its legs are barely perceptible, delicate as eyelashes. Its light pulses warm against her skin, and for just a moment she feels it, actually feels it the way you feel, a hand on your shoulder in the dark saying, "I'm here, you're not alone." Her throat tightens. "I'm all right," she whispers to it. To all of them. To the library itself. Just forgetting how to be otherwise. The firefly lifts off gently, like a wish released. It floats away from her, drifting toward the back of the library, toward the wall of old atlases and forgotten poetry, the section where hardly anyone ventures anymore. The others follow, a small constellation of golden lights moving in slow formation, as if leading her somewhere, or showing her something. Elara sets down her mug and follows. Her wool socks make no sound on the floorboards. The library at night moves differently than it does during the day, slower, deeper, as though time itself thickens in the absence of fluorescent light and human chatter. Each shelf she passes seems taller, each shadow more full of presence. She has walked these aisles 10,000 times, knows every creak in the floor, every place where the wood has been worn smooth by decades of footsteps. But tonight feels different. She notices it the way you notice a childhood song playing faintly in another room, not with your ears exactly, but with some older sense that lives beneath thought. Something has shifted. Something has opened. The fireflies have stopped at the back wall, clustering near the section marked 910-919, Travel, Atlases, Geography. The old card catalog used to stand here, oak drawers with brass pulls, each one filled with typed index cards that smelled of dust and possibility. But it was removed years ago when the library went digital, hauled away to make room for a computer station that hardly anyone uses because most people just search from their phones now. Two tall bookshelves flank the space where the card catalog once stood. They have always been flush against each other. Elara knows this with absolute certainty. She has dusted them every Tuesday night for 2 decades. But tonight, there is a gap between them. Just a narrow slice of deeper darkness, barely wider than her shoulders, and in that darkness she can see the outline of something that should not be there. A door. Her breath catches. She steps closer. Slowly. The way you move when you're not sure if what you're seeing is real or if exhaustion has finally cracked something vital inside your mind. The fireflies pulse brighter, encouraging. It is a door. Absolutely, undeniably a door. She has worked in this library for 23 years. She knows every square inch, every creaking floorboard, every warped shelf, every water stain on the ceiling shaped like a ship or a bird or a childhood memory. There has never been a door here. Never. And yet, it is wooden, slightly crooked in its frame, as though it grew there naturally rather than being built. The paint is the soft, luminous green of new leaves in April, the color of hope before it learns to be practical. The wood itself is old, with grain like rivers, dark whorls like thumbprints pressed into time. And there, about shoulder height, carved into the wood so shallowly it might be mistaken for a natural pattern, the outline of a lantern. Simple, unmistakable, a small flame cupped inside curved glass. Elara's heart gives one slow, deliberate beat recognition and fear and longing all woven together so tightly she cannot tell them apart. She reaches out. Her fingers tremble the way yours do when you touch something sacred you were told no longer existed. The way they do when you find an old photograph and realize you had forgotten that version of yourself was ever real. The way they do when you're terrified that if you reach too eagerly, the thing you want most will dissolve like fog. There is a brass knob, small and round, worn smooth by what must have been 1,000 hands turning it before tonight. It glows faintly in the dim light, as though it has its own warmth. She wraps her fingers around it. It is warm. Alive. The library holds its breath. The fireflies gather in a soft halo around her head. Even the snow outside seems to pause mid-fall. Elara turns the knob. It moves easily, without resistance, as though it has been waiting for exactly this hand, this moment, this particular shade of loneliness and longing. The door opens. Without a sound. And beyond it lies a passage she has never seen, a corridor of dark wood paneling that smells of rain and cedar and something older still, something that makes her think of her grandmother's house, of attic rooms where trunks held wedding dresses and love letters, of hiding places where the world felt too big and you needed somewhere small and safe to simply be. The fireflies stream past her shoulders, eager now, pouring into the passage like a river of light returning home. Elara takes one last look back at the library, at the green lamp still glowing on the circulation desk, at her mug of tea steaming gently, at the familiar world she has tended so carefully for so long, and then she steps through the door. The passage is narrow, just wide enough for Elara to walk without her shoulders brushing the walls, which are paneled in dark wood that gleams softly in the firefly light. The wood is old, you can tell by the way it smells, like rain-soaked cedar left to dry in an attic where time moves differently. There are whorls and knots in the grain that look almost like faces if you let your eyes soften. A grandmother smiling, a child mid-laugh, a dog sleeping in a patch of sun. The floor beneath her wool socks is covered in a runner threadbare Persian, its colors muted by age and love into deep wine, reds and indigos that shift like water as she walks. The pattern is intricate, vines and flowers and tiny birds hidden in the borders. It reminds her immediately, viscerally, of her grandmother's house. The house where she spent every summer until she was 12, before her grandmother moved into the memory care facility and the house was sold to pay for it. There had been a rug just like this in the upstairs hallway. Elara used to lie on it when the world felt too big when her parents were fighting downstairs, or when the other kids at school made fun of her for reading during recess, or when she simply needed to press her cheek against something soft and old and full of stories that weren't hers to carry. She had forgotten about that rug, about that hallway, about the way hiding could feel like being held. The door behind her closes with the softest click, not the sound of being trapped, but of privacy, of a secret agreeing to keep itself safe. Elara glances back once, sees the door still there, solid and real, and then turns forward again. The fireflies stream ahead of her, dozens of them now, weaving through the air in loose spirals. Their light is warmer here, more golden, as though they're burning with something other than ordinary bioluminescence. They look like they're happy, like they're going home after a long journey. You feel it too, don't you? That little inward breath. That tightening in the chest that isn't quite fear and isn't quite excitement but something older, the feeling you had as a child when you found a hidden door in a garden wall, or a path through the woods you'd never noticed before, or a book that seemed to have been written specifically for you and left on a shelf just where you would find it. That moment when you realize the world is still willing to surprise you if you are brave enough to follow a light into the dark. Elara follows. The passage curves gently to the left and then opens into a room the size of a hug. That's the only way to describe it. Not small, exactly, but perfectly proportioned to make you feel held rather than confined. The ceiling is low and beamed with dark wood, and from the beams hang paper lanterns, the kind you might find at a summer festival or a child's birthday party. Each one glowing softly in colors that feel like comfort made visible. Peach like sunrise through clean windows, butter yellow like lamplight in a kitchen where someone is baking bread, pale sky blue like the moment just before dawn when the world is still sleeping and everything feels possible. The lanterns glow, though they hold no bulbs, no candles, no visible source of light. They simply are bright. The way kindness is bright. The way hope is bright even when you can't explain why you still have it. The walls are lined floor to ceiling with bookshelves, but these are not the utilitarian metal shelves of a modern library. These are carved wood, each shelf slightly different from the next, as though they grew naturally rather than being built. And the books, oh, the books. Some are bound in velvet the color of midnight, soft as moth wings. Some are wrapped in tree bark, still fragrant with moss and rain, their spines rough and organic. Some are no larger than a matchbox, their covers inlaid with tiny gems that catch the lantern light. Others are so large they would require both arms to lift, their covers tooled leather or pressed copper or something that looks like solidified moonlight. In the center of the room stands a small, round table, just large enough for 2 teacups and a book. The table is made of something golden, not gold exactly, but wood that has been loved so long it has taken on the patina of precious metal. And on it, beneath a single lamp with a green glass shade that casts a pool of emerald light, lies a book. Open, waiting. The fireflies drift down to settle on the table's edge in a perfect ring, pulsing gently like a crown of soft stars. Their light reflects in the green glass of the lamp, making patterns on the ceiling that look like leaves moving in a breeze that isn't there. Elara approaches slowly, as though walking underwater. Everything feels slow and dream-heavy here, each step deliberate, each breath drawn deeper than the one before. She doesn't question this. You don't question magic when it arrives dressed in gentleness. She knows this room. Not with her mind, there's no logical recognition. No concrete memory she can point to and say, yes, I've been here before. But her bones know it. Her blood knows it. The child she used to be, the one who still lives somewhere inside her chest, like a small flame kept carefully guarded, recognizes this place the way a bird recognizes the sky. This is where the town's forgotten memories come to rest. Every time someone grew up and stopped believing in secret gardens, the memory of theirs drifted here, not lost, never lost, just waiting. Every time a child was told, you'll understand when you're older, and then never allowed to return to magic, that piece of them curled up on these shelves like a cat, finding the warmest, safest spot in the house. Every time someone put away their imagination to be practical, to be responsible, to be the adult everyone needed them to be, the part they put away came here. And it waited. For a night like tonight. For someone tired enough, lonely enough, brave enough to follow a door that wasn't there yesterday. Elara reaches the table. Her hands are trembling just slightly, the way they do when you're about to touch something that might change you. she looks down at the open book. The pages are thick, handmade paper with soft deckled edges, and on them, written in inks of many colors, violet and rose and gold and deep forest green, are memories. But they're not written in words exactly. They're more like pressed flowers of moments, each one preserved with such care that you can almost smell them, almost taste them, almost hear the laughter or rain or music that accompanied them when they were first made. She touches the edge of the page with one finger. It's warm, and the memory shivers to life. Suddenly, the air smells of cut grass and vanilla ice cream cones. She can hear it distant but clear, the sound of children's laughter, bright as bells, mixed with the murmur of adult conversation and the tinny music of a carousel playing something old-fashioned and sweet. She sees it, though her eyes are still looking at the page, a summer night on the town green when the whole community gathered for the Firefly Festival. There were quilts spread on the grass and mason jars with holes punched in the lids for catching lightning bugs. There was Mrs. Chen from the library handing out bookmarks she'd made by hand. There was the mayor's son playing guitar badly but joyfully. There was the feeling she'd forgotten of being part of something larger than yourself, of belonging to a place that knew your name and was glad you were there. No one checked the time that night, no one worried about tomorrow. The world was just that green, and those lights and the taste of cold vanilla melting on your tongue and the knowledge that this, right here, was enough. When did they stop doing the festival? Elara can't remember. Sometime in the late 90s maybe. Budget cuts. Liability concerns. The usual slow fade of small-town magic into parking lots and practicality. But the memory is still here, she realizes. Still real. Still warm. She turns the page carefully, as though turning the page of a hymnal in church. Another memory rises, the old oak tree at the edge of the river that used to hold a treehouse, not the fancy kind with windows and shingles that rich families build in their backyard. The real kind, boards nailed into branches, a rope ladder that swayed in the wind, a telescope someone's father had bought at a yard sale and bolted to the railing because he wanted his daughter to see the stars up close. Elara remembers that treehouse. She was 9 the summer it was built. Her father who worked at the post office and played harmonica on the porch and died of a heart attack when she was 16, had been one of the builders. She can see him now. In the memory. Younger. Stronger. His sleeves rolled up and his hair dark instead of gray, hammering nails and laughing with the other fathers. All of them collaborating on this one impossible gift for the children who would climb up there and dream. She remembers the smell of fresh pine boards warming in the sun, the way the wind rocked them gently when they were up in the branches, making her stomach drop pleasantly like the first dip on a roller coaster. And her father's voice, soft and certain, as they looked through the telescope at Jupiter and its moons. "The universe is friendly, little star. It wants you to look." Her throat tightens. Her eyes burn. She had forgotten he called her that. Little star. She had forgotten the sound of his voice saying anything at all. The memory sits in her chest now, sharp and sweet as lemon, and she realizes she's grateful for the sharpness. Better this than the dull nothing of forgetting. Better to ache with memory than to be empty of it. She turns another page. And there is her own memory. The one that belongs only to her. The ink is a soft violet blue, the color of twilight, and in the pressed flower of the moment, she sees herself, 7 years old, barefoot, wearing her favorite nightgown with the faded rainbow on it. She's in the library. This library. But it's after hours, and she's not supposed to be here, except she is because her grandmother who smelled like lavender sachets and peppermint tea, who died when Elara was 14, was the Night Librarian before there was ever an official position called that. Grandma Rose used to bring young Elara with her on certain nights, when Elara's parents were fighting too loudly, or when Elara couldn't sleep for the nightmares that came after her baby brother was born too early, and then wasn't born at all. And in the memory, little Elara is curled in the window seat in the children's section, the one with the worn blue cushion and the view of the maple tree. She's reading a picture book. She can see the cover even now, The Girl Who Befriended the Moon. In the story, a lonely girl makes a wish, and the moon comes down on a silver thread to talk with her. Before the moon goes back to the sky, it leaves the thread tied to the girl's wrist so they can always find each other. So, she'll never be alone. Little Elara, reading by flashlight so she wouldn't disturb her grandmother's work, took a piece of red yarn from the craft supplies in the children's section. She tied it around her wrist in 3 careful knots. She held her hand up to the window and whispered, "I'm here if you need me too, Moon." And she fell asleep there on the window seat, one small hand pressed to the glass, believing with her whole heart that the moon would remember her. That magic was real. That loneliness was just a temporary condition that could be cured with the right wish and enough faith. She had forgotten. She had completely, utterly forgotten she ever believed that. A tear slips down Elara's cheek, now warm, surprising, necessary, then another. She doesn't wipe them away. They fall onto the page, and where they land, the ink shimmers brighter, as though the salt of her grief is watering something that needs to grow. You feel it too, don't you, love? That soft click inside the chest. Not a breaking, but an opening, the sound of something you thought was dead, forever stirring and stretching and remembering your name. The feeling of a door inside yourself, one you locked so carefully because it hurt too much to keep it open, suddenly swinging wide. And instead of darkness behind it, there's light. There's the child you were. There's every brave, ridiculous, beautiful thing you used to believe before the world taught you to be smaller. And that child is still here. Still waiting. Still holding the red yarn tied to their wrist. Still pressing their hand to the glass. Still whispering, "I'm here if you need me." Elara presses her palm flat against the page, and the memory pulses once beneath her hand like a heartbeat, and then settles. The fireflies rise from the table in a gentle swirl, their light soft and warm and encouraging. They don't rush her. They simply drift upward and begin moving toward an archway. Elara hadn't noticed before another passage, this one draped with what looks like strings of dried lavender and baby's breath, the flowers so old they're almost translucent. She follows them. There are more rooms. Of course there are more rooms. There are always more rooms in places like this, places that exist adjacent to reality, where the architecture of memory takes precedence over the physics of space. Each room holds something different. Each one a piece of the town's lost joy, preserved perfectly, waiting. The first room beyond the archway makes Elara stop and catch her breath. It is the old gazebo. Not a picture of it. Not a memory of it. The actual gazebo, somehow, or a perfect preservation of it. The 8-sided structure with the tin roof and the weathered white paint and the names carved into the benches and railings. Danny plus Lisa, forever. Junior class 89. AR was here. And it is raining. She can hear it before she even steps fully into the room. Rain on that tin roof, the particular sound it made metallic and musical, and somehow both urgent and peaceful. The sound of 1,000 tiny drums playing a rhythm that meant summer storms and afternoons that stretched like taffy, and the smell of ozone and earth and growing things. There is a velvet settee inside the gazebo, burgundy red, tufted, the kind of furniture that belongs in a Victorian parlor but has somehow found its way here. Elara walks to it slowly, stepping up the 2 wooden stairs that creak in exactly the way she remembers. She sits. The rain falls around her, gentle, nostalgic, healing. It doesn't touch her, the roof keeps her dry, but she can see it through the open sides of the gazebo, coming down in soft sheets that blur the world beyond into impressionist paintings of green and gray. And the smell. Oh, the smell. It smells like 1,997, like being 16 and in love for the first time with a boy named Marcus who played saxophone in the school band. Like that night they came here after the homecoming dance because they wanted to be alone but not too alone, wanted to be brave but not too brave. They sat on the built-in benches, the velvet settee wasn't here then, and they talked about everything, college dreams and favorite songs and whether the universe was infinite. And then they kissed, soft and tentative, tasting of fruit punch and possibility. It smells like the ache of being young enough to believe that love could be simple, that if 2 people just wanted it enough, liked each other enough, tried hard enough, it would work forever. Before she learned about the ways people grow in different directions, Before Marcus moved to California for graduate school and the letters got further apart and finally stopped altogether. Before she understood that most first loves are meant to teach you how to love, not meant to last. But sitting here now, in this impossible room where rain falls forever on a gazebo that was torn down in 2003 to make room for a coffee shop drive-thru, she doesn't feel bitter about it. She feels grateful, grateful that it happened. Grateful that she got to be that young, that hopeful, that certain that the universe was friendly and wanted her to be happy. She closes her eyes and listens to the rain. You are crying too, aren't you? Soft tears, the kind that don't hurt. The kind that wash the dust from old wonders and leave everything cleaner, clearer, more true. Let them fall, love. I am here. I have tissues made of moonlight if you need them. But sometimes the best thing you can do for tears like this is just let them run their course, the way you let rain run its course, trusting that when it's over, the world will smell sweeter. Elara sits in the rain, music for a long time. Maybe 5 minutes, maybe an hour. Time doesn't move the same way here. When she finally opens her eyes, the fireflies are waiting by another doorway, this one smaller, more like a child's door, painted the blue of a robin's egg. She rises from the settee, her legs stiff but her heart lighter, and follows them through. The next room stops her completely. It is a child's bedroom from another era, from 1953, specifically, though she doesn't know how she knows that she just does. The way you know the year a photograph was taken from the quality of the light and the cut of the clothes and the particular innocence in people's faces. The walls are papered in a pattern of faded rockets and stars, the kind popular after Sputnik, when the space race made every child dream of being an astronaut. The paper has yellowed at the edges and peeled slightly near the ceiling, but it's still beautiful, still full of wonder. There is a small wooden desk beneath the window with a school composition book open on it, a pencil lying in the crease. A toy ray gun, the plastic kind, bright red and silver, sits on the bookshelf next to a row of Hardy Boys mysteries. There is a bed, small, with a white painted headboard, a patchwork quilt in blues and greens and yellows, and on the pillow lies a stuffed rabbit. Its ears are worn soft from being held during thunderstorms. One eye is a button, the other a mismatched one sewn on after the original was loved off. Its fur is matted in places, smooth in others. The texture map of 1,000 bedtimes, 1,000 whispered secrets, 1,000 nights when the dark felt too big and this small cotton body was the only thing standing between a child and fear. Elara walks to the bed as though drawn by gravity. She picks up the rabbit, and immediately it smells like Johnson's baby shampoo and safety, like clean pajamas dried on a backyard clothesline. Like a mother's hands tucking you in and a father's voice reading one more chapter even though it's past bedtime. Like the particular piece of being small enough that someone else makes all the decisions and all you have to do is be loved. She presses it to her heart, and she cries the way you only cry when you are finally home. Not sad tears, not exactly, but the tears of recognition, of remembering what it felt like to be held, to be small, to be allowed no, expected to need comfort, before you learn to be strong, to be independent, to carry everything yourself because asking for help made you weak. The rabbit is soft against her chest. It seems to pulse slightly, as though it has a heartbeat, or as though it's absorbing hers and giving it back gentler, steadier, more sure. She doesn't know how long she stands there, holding it. The room is patient. The fireflies have settled on the windowsill, their light reflecting in the dark glass like stars that came inside to keep watch. When she finally sets the rabbit back on the pillow gently, reverently, tucking it under the quilt the way it clearly wants to be tucked, she feels different, lighter, as though she'd been carrying something without realizing it, and now it's been lifted. The fireflies rise and drift toward yet another door. This one is barely visible, more of a curtain made of what looks like pages torn from old books, hanging in strips that move in a breeze that smells of library paste in autumn. Elara pushes through the paper curtain and finds herself in a room of letters. The walls are covered in them, hundreds, maybe thousands. Letters written in careful cursive, in clumsy block printing, in the sprawling hand of children who are just learning to shape words. They're pinned up like butterflies in a collection, each one precious, each one waiting. The room is small and round, like the inside of a tower. A single table in the center holds a wooden box, lid open, full of more letters tied with different colors of ribbon. Red for age 5, blue for age 8, yellow for age 10, green for age 13. These are letters children wrote to their future selves and then forgot in the rush of growing up. Dear me. When I'm grown up, one begins, written in purple crayon. I hope you still like dinosaurs. Love, Timothy, age 6. To future Sarah, says another in pink gel pen. Please don't forget to visit the ocean. It's where you're happiest. Also, please keep being friends with Morgan even though her family is moving. Love, Sarah, 11 years old. Elara walks slowly around the room, reading them. Each one is a small heartbreak. Each one is a promise that wasn't kept, or was kept for a while and then forgotten. Each one is a child reaching across time, trying to hold on to what mattered most, terrified that growing up means losing yourself. And then she sees it. On the table, separated from the others, lying on a square of red velvet, a letter in her own childish scrawl. The paper is lined notebook paper, the kind with the Mead brand name at the top. The ink is purple, her favorite color when she was small. The letters are careful but uneven, the G's and Y's struggling to stay below the line. She picks it up with shaking hands. Dear grown-up Elara, it says. I hope you still like books. I hope you still think magic is real, even though Mom says I'll understand when I'm older that it's just stories. I hope you're happy. I hope you remember how to fly. Please don't forget how to fly. Love little you, age 8. Below it, in the same purple ink, is a drawing. A stick figure with wild curly hair. That's accurate. Elara's hair has always been unruly, holding a book in one hand and a star in the other. And above the stick figure's head, wings. Elara reads it 3 times, and then she laughs. Not a big laugh. A small one. Wet and wondering. The sound of something breaking open in the best way possible. Because she had forgotten. She had completely forgotten that she used to believe she could fly. Not literally, even at 8, she understood physics, but in the way that mattered, the way that meant possibility. The way that meant you could become anything, go anywhere, that the world was wide and full of doors and your life was still a blank page you could fill with anything you dared to imagine. When did she stop believing that? She can't pinpoint the moment. It was gradual, the way frost creeps across a window. Practical choice by practical choice. Rent payments and student loans and the slow understanding that flying was for people who had safety nets and she had needed to be her own safety net. But the letter is here. In her hand. Real. And little Elara is still reaching across time. Still asking, not demanding. Asking, please don't forget how to fly. I didn't forget. Elara whispers to the letter, to herself, to the child she was. I just misplaced it for a while. The fireflies pulse brighter, as if approving. She folds the letter carefully and tucks it into her cardigan pocket, right over her heart. And then she follows the fireflies through one final door, this one tall and narrow, carved from a single piece of wood that looks like it might have come from a tree that grew nowhere on earth. The grain is silver and moves like water. The last room is barely a room at all. It is circular, with walls that might be stone or might be night sky. It's impossible to tell. The ceiling is domed and transparent, showing stars that are impossibly bright and close, as if she's standing on top of a mountain where the air is thin and clear. And in the center of the room, hanging from a silver chain, a lantern. Not a modern LED lantern. Not a flashlight. A real lantern. The old kind, made of brass that has been dented in places by decades of use. Its panes are colored glass, rose and gold, and the deepest green, like forests at twilight. Inside, a flame burns. Not orange, not yellow. A soft blue gold, like the color of fireflies, like the color of magic that has learned to be gentle. The lantern sways slightly, though there is no wind, and with each slow rotation the colored glass throws patterns on the walls, roses blooming, birds in flight, children holding hands in a circle around something precious they're protecting. Elara knows this lantern. She knows it the way you know your own heartbeat. The way you know the smell of rain, or the taste of honey, or the feeling of being held when you're small and sick and someone who loves you is carrying you to bed. This is her grandmother's lantern. The one Grandma Rose used to carry through the library stacks when Elara was young, lighting the way through the dark parts of the building where the overhead lights had burned out and hadn't been replaced yet. The one that made shadows dance and stories come alive in pools of warm light. It is the lantern that has guided every night librarian since the library was built in 1892. When the town still believed that books were magic and libraries were sacred and someone needed to keep watch over the dreams people stored in words. But it disappeared decades ago. When Grandma Rose went into the memory care facility, when her things were boxed up and distributed, the lantern was simply gone. Lost, everyone said. Maybe thrown away by accident. Maybe stolen by someone who didn't understand its value. But here it is, waiting. Elara reaches up slowly. Her hands are steady now, no longer trembling. Some part of her understands that this is what she came here for. This is what the door appeared to show her. She lifts the lantern down from its chain. It is warm in her hands. Alive. The brass thrums slightly, like a purring cat or a heart beating just faster than hers. She looks into the flame, and in it she sees tiny landscapes forming and dissolving like dreams. A child running through a field of daisies, arms spread wide, face turned toward the sun. An old woman rocking on a porch with a calico cat in her lap, both of them dozing in afternoon light. Two teenagers slow dancing in a gym decorated with paper stars. The boy's hand careful on the small of the girl's back, both of them terrified and elated and trying not to step on each other's feet. A father hammering nails into a treehouse, his face bright with the joy of making something beautiful for someone he loves. A grandmother reading to a small girl by lantern light, their shadows huge on the library wall, both of them lost in the world of the story. The memories the town forgot are all inside this one small flame, kept safe, not lost, never lost, just waiting for someone to find them again, waiting for someone tired enough, lonely enough, brave enough to remember that magic isn't childish, that wonder isn't impractical, that the world needs people who tend the forgotten things, who keep the lanterns lit, who believe that somewhere in the dark someone is holding a light and waiting to guide you home. Elara understands now. The door appeared because the town is almost out of magic, because too many people have locked their childhoods away in boxes labeled later and then lost the boxes, because too many dreams have been called impractical. Because too many adults have forgotten how to believe in doors that weren't there yesterday. The library, the heart of the town, has been running on the last ember of wonder, and that ember is tired, just like her. The lantern has been waiting here, in this room between memory and reality, for someone to find it, for someone to carry it back, for someone to light it in the library again and remind the town that magic is not something you grow out of. It's something you grow into, if you're brave enough. You remember this feeling, don't you? When the world got too loud and you forgot how to hear magic. When you put away your imagination like putting away toys, thinking you'd come back to it later, and then later never came. When you started believing that being an adult meant being practical, sensible, small. That wonder was for children and you had responsibilities now. But it doesn't have to be that way. The world needs adults who remember how to fly, who keep the lanterns lit, who tend the forgotten magics until the children who made them are ready to come home. Elara holds the lantern to her chest with both hands. It fits perfectly in her arms, as though it has been waiting for her specifically, as though all the hands that held it before her grandmother's hands and the librarians before her, going back through decades, were all just keeping it warm until it could return to her. The way the moon waited for the little girl with the yarn bracelet, the way some promises wait decades to be kept. "I'm sorry," Elara whispers to it, to the lantern, to the library, to the town, to the child she used to be, To every dream she folded small and forgot in practical pockets. I'm sorry I forgot too. I'm sorry I stopped believing. The lantern flares gently in her hands, not brighter, but warmer. A pulse of light that feels like forgiveness. Like being told, it's okay. You're here now. That's what matters. And now, love. Now comes the part where everything softens. Now comes the part where you're allowed to stop carrying it all alone. Elara turns, the lantern held carefully in both hands. The fireflies have gathered in a constellation around her, dozens of them, pulsing in unison with the lantern flame. They begin to move back toward the entrance, back through the paper curtain and the blue door and the rain music room and the memory room and the narrow passage with the Persian runner that smells like her grandmother's house. Elara follows them, and as she walks slowly, each step deliberate, the memories stir and wake. They don't follow her. Exactly. That's not quite right. They're already part of her. They always have been. But now they're remembered again, lit up again, present again. With every step she takes, carrying the lantern back toward the library, she can feel them settling into place inside her like bones that were dislocated and are finally set right. The sound of playground laughter from the Firefly Festival. The smell of lilacs from the hedge that was cut down 30 years ago for a parking lot. The feeling of bare feet on warm summer pavement after dark, running toward home when your mother calls that dinner's ready. The taste of vanilla ice cream melting faster than you can lick it. The weight of a stuffed rabbit in your arms during a thunderstorm. Her father's voice, the universe is friendly. Little star. They drift behind her like a wedding train made of glow and tenderness, like proof that nothing beautiful is ever truly lost, like the answer to every prayer you forgot you prayed. She reaches the narrow green door, the one that appeared between the shelves, the one carved with a lantern, the one that shouldn't exist. She shifts the lantern to one arm, carefully, and reaches for the brass knob. It's still warm. She turns it. The door opens silently, just as it did before, and beyond it lies the library. Her library. Waiting. The library's main room is exactly as she left it. The green banker's lamp still glows on the circulation desk, casting its pool of emerald light across the scarred oak surface. Her mug of chamomile tea sits where she abandoned it, still faintly steaming, as though no time has passed at all, or as though time decided to wait patiently for her return. The snow still falls outside the tall windows, each flake deliberate and soft. But something is different now. The air feels different. Lighter. As though the building has been holding its breath for decades and is finally allowed to exhale. Elara steps fully through the green door, the lantern cradled carefully in both arms. Behind her, the door remains open. She can feel it there, warm and present, no longer secret but simply available. A threshold that will remain as long as it's needed. The moment her foot touches the library floor, the fireflies erupt. Not just the dozen that have been living here through the winter. Hundreds of them. Thousands. They pour from the stacks like liquid light, streaming from between books and around corners, and through spaces too small for anything solid to pass. They fill the air in joyful spirals, their golden glow intensifying until the entire library is illuminated, not by electric light, but by living, breathing wonder. The overhead fluorescent fixtures flicker once, twice, and then glow on by themselves, but gently, warmly, as though they've learned something from the fireflies about how to wake without harshness. The light they give now is nothing like their usual stark brightness. It's soft, amber-tinted, the color of late afternoon sun through honey. Elara walks slowly toward the circulation desk, and with each step the fireflies swirl around her like a living constellation, like a celebration, like the universe saying, "Welcome home, welcome home, welcome home." She reaches the desk and so carefully sets the lantern down right where the teapot usually sits, right in the center of the worn oak surface that has held the weight of 1,000,000 returned books and just as many quiet acts of tending. The lantern settles into place as though it remembers this exact spot, as though it has been aching to return here for all the years it was lost, and its light spreads. It doesn't burst outward. Nothing here is sudden or violent. But it fills the library the way dawn fills a room when you've forgotten to close the curtains slowly, inevitably, kindly. The colored glass panes turn the flame into moving patterns of rose and gold and forest green that climb the walls like vines, that paint the ceiling like stained glass, that transform every shadow into something softer. The light touches the nearest bookshelf, and the books rustle their pages, not violently, not like wind through paper, but gently, the way you might stretch after a long sleep, working the stiffness from your spine. Happy to be remembered. Happy to know they matter again. A volume of Emily Dickinson falls open to Hope is the Thing with Feathers. A collection of fairy tales by Lang flutters as though thumbs are turning through the colored plates. A book of astronomy opens to a photograph of Jupiter and its moons. The lantern light spreads further. The old card catalog, or what remains of it, the single row of drawers they kept for nostalgia when everything went digital, creaks softly. One drawer slides open an inch, then another. They're offering their treasures, the smell of aged paper and typewriter ribbon, the ghost of every searching finger that ever pulled them open looking for exactly the right story. Even the building itself seems to respond. The walls exhale. Elara swears she hears it, feels it in her bones, a long, contented sigh that smells of rain on old paper and cedar hope, and the particular peace of a place that knows its purpose again. The floorboards settle with soft sounds like contentment. The radiators begin to tick and hiss, warming up though it's hours before they're programmed to turn on. The library is waking up, not from sleep exactly, from forgetting, from the slow fade that happens when magic is dismissed as impractical and wonder is set aside for later and later never comes. But it's remembering now. And Elara feels it happening inside her own chest, the ache that has lived there for so long, the one she stopped noticing the way you stopped noticing, the weight of your own bones. It's loosening, unwinding, floating away like dandelion seeds caught in a summer breeze, each one carrying a different small grief. The dream she folded too small, the hope she called impractical, the part of herself she locked away because being an adult meant being serious and sensible and small. All of it lifting, all of it released. She is crying again, but they are the good tears now, the kind that come after a long, long carrying, the kind that wash you clean instead of wearing you down. They slip down her cheeks silently, catching the lantern light as they fall, turning briefly to gold before they drop onto the desk and disappear. She lifts the lantern again carefully, reverently, and begins to walk the stacks. The fireflies part before her like a curtain, then swirl in her wake like a train made of light. And wherever the lantern's glow touches, small magics return. A picture book on the lower shelf, one that hasn't been checked out in years, its cover faded and spine cracked from love falls open as she passes. On its pages, a watercolor dragon lifts its head and gently breathes warm air that somehow, impossibly, carries the scent of cinnamon and cloves and Christmas mornings when magic felt as real as breakfast. A slim volume of poetry by Mary Oliver begins to recite itself in a voice Elara recognizes instantly. Her grandmother's voice, soft and lilting and full of love. Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? The words hang in the air like visible things, like promises, like permission. The atlas on the very top shelf, the one so old it still shows the Soviet Union and countries that have since changed their names, glows faintly. When Elara stands on her toes to look, she sees it's no longer showing just countries and capitals and the standard geography of consensus reality. Now it also shows the secret places, the exact spot behind the elementary school where someone buried a treasure box full of cat's eye marbles and folded wishes in 1987. The tree in Riverside Park where lovers carved their initials so many times, the bark grew around them like the tree was keeping score. The corner of 3rd and Main where you can still hear the ghost of the trolley that used to run through downtown if you stand very still on foggy mornings. All the magic the town forgot. Mapped carefully, preserved lovingly, waiting. You feel it too, don't you, love? That soft click inside the chest. Not a breaking, an opening, when something you thought was dead forever stirs and stretches and remembers your name. When you realize that the part of you that knew how to wonder, how to believe, how to fly, it didn't die. It was just sleeping, waiting for you to be tired enough, brave enough, lonely enough to go looking for it. And here it is. Here you are. Welcome home. Elara completes her circuit of the library, the lantern warm and steady in her hands, and returns to the circulation desk. She sets it down again in its place of honor, and it settles with a satisfied glow, as though it too has completed a long journey and is content to rest. Outside the tall windows, the snow has stopped. She notices it gradually, first the silence, then the change in the air. The clouds are parting, pulled back like curtains by invisible hands, and there, in the gap they leave, hangs the crescent moon, thin as a smile, bright as hope. It looks directly at the library, and if you didn't know better, you'd swear it was pleased, proud, even. The way a mother looks at her child who has finally found their way home. And if you look closely, and Elara does, pressing her face to the cold glass, you can see it. A silver thread, fine as spider silk, tied from the moon's lower tip all the way down through the night sky to the library's roof. The thread she tied around her wrist with red yarn when she was 7, the promise she made, the promise the moon kept. I'm here if you need me. The moon remembered. Tomorrow, the town will wake and feel different. Not dramatically. No one will be able to put their finger on exactly what has changed. But children will wake with strange dreams of doors that appear where they shouldn't, and they'll spend the whole day drawing them in crayon green doors with lanterns carved on them, doors that lead to rooms full of paper, lanterns, and pressed memories, and stuffed rabbits that smell like safety. Old men sitting on benches outside the hardware store will suddenly remember the taste of homemade root beer, the kind someone's grandfather used to make in glass bottles kept cool in the creek. They'll spend hours trying to recall the recipe, arguing cheerfully about whether it had sarsaparilla or just sassafras, and in the arguing, they'll remember they used to be friends, used to be young, used to believe summer would last forever. Someone walking through the woods behind the old mill will find a treehouse that hasn't been there in 40 years. They'll climb up, their middle-aged joints protesting, and find their initials carved into the railing, and they'll sit there for an hour, remembering what it felt like to be 12 and infinite. A woman getting dressed for work will tie a red yarn bracelet around her wrist for no reason she can explain, and all day she'll catch herself smiling at it, feeling lighter than she has in months. The magic is spreading. Quiet. Gentle. Real. But tonight there is only Elara and the lantern and the library full of returned wonder. She pours herself a fresh cup of chamomile from the pot that has stayed perfectly warm. Steam rises in perfect curls, carrying the scent of apple blossoms and honey and forgiveness. She carries the mug to the big leather chair behind the circulation desk, the chair that has molded itself over decades to fit every night librarian who ever kept vigil, that holds the shape of her grandmother's back and her grandmother's grandmother's back, and now, finally, hers. She sinks into it slowly, carefully, the way you lower yourself into a hot bath when every muscle aches. The leather is warm and soft and smells faintly of lanolin and old books and the particular comfort of furniture that has been well loved. She sets her mug on the desk beside the lantern. The lantern burns steady beside her. Its flame dances slowly behind the colored glass, casting patterns that look like breathing in, out, teaching her how to let go. And now, dear heart, now it is time to let go. Elara closes her eyes. The sounds of the library wrap around her, the soft electric hum of the banker's lamp, the distant tick of the radiators, the whisper of fireflies moving through the stacks like prayers, like blessings, like the breath of a building that has remembered how to dream. She lets her shoulders drop, not all at once, but slowly, the way ice melts in spring. The tension she's been carrying for 23 years, no longer, since before she became the Night Librarian, since she was young and learned that the world rewards practicality and punishes dreamers, it unties itself, one knot at a time. Each one releasing with a small sigh, with a moment of ache, followed immediately by relief. The last knot, the deepest one, the one that has lived at the very center of her chest since she was 8 years old and decided the moon couldn't really see her, unties itself and drifts away like smoke, like dandelions, like every burden that was never hers to carry. She is not alone. She never was. The fireflies pulse in gentle unison, and in their rhythm she hears it. You are not alone. You are not alone. You are not alone. The library breathes around her, and in its breath she hears it. You are home. You are home. You are home. The lantern glows steady and warm, and in its light she knows it. You are remembered. You are loved. Tomorrow can wait. And you lying in your bed in the dark, listening to this story, you are not alone either. The part of you that wanders at 3 a.m., looking for wonder. The part that aches when you pass playgrounds. The part that whispers, I used to believe in impossible things. That part is still here, still real, still waiting for you to be brave enough to follow a light into the dark. You remember this feeling, don't you? When the world quiets enough for you to hear your own heart saying, welcome home. When the noise stops, when the demands pause, when you're allowed finally allowed to be small and tired and held. This is that feeling. Right now. Right here. Let your breathing slow. Match it to the lantern flame. In, out. In, out. Steady. Easy. No rush. Time has agreed to wait for you tonight. Let the blanket settle heavier, warmer. Feel its weight like a blessing, like a hand on your shoulder, like every kindness you were ever too tired to accept. Let the tears dry on your cheeks like gentle rain that has done its work. The garden is watered now. Green things can grow again. The library is full again. The books remember their magic. The fireflies know their names. The building breathes in peace. And Elara sits in her grandmother's chair with the lantern burning beside her, and she is finally allowed to rest. The town is dreaming again. Children are drawing impossible doors. Old men are laughing over root beer recipes. Teenagers are finding tree houses. Women are tying yarn around their wrists. And somewhere, in every house, there is someone lying in bed feeling just a little lighter, just a little more possible, just a little more held, and they don't know why, but they don't need to. The magic is real. It was always real. It was just waiting. And somewhere inside you, deep in the safest, quietest place, the child who once believed in doors that appear after midnight is curling up safe. They're holding a stuffed rabbit whose ears are worn soft from love. They're wearing a nightgown with a rainbow on it. They have red yarn tied around their wrist. And they're smiling in their sleep because they know they've always known that the moon is watching, that the lantern is lit, that someone is keeping vigil while they rest. That child is safe now. That child is home. That child is you. The lantern burns lower now. Softer. Steady as a heartbeat. Steady as breath. Steady as the promise that was kept. Steady as love. It will burn all night while you sleep. It burns for Elara, who remembered how to believe. It burns for the town, which is learning to dream again. It burns for every tired soul who forgot they were allowed to rest, who forgot they were allowed to be small, who forgot that wonder isn't childish, it's the bravest thing there is. It burns for you. The flame is warm. The flame is safe. The flame is steady. In, out, in, out. Breathe with it. Let it breathe for you. Tomorrow will come with its demands and its noise and its lists that grow teeth, but tomorrow is tomorrow. Tonight is tonight. And tonight you are allowed to rest. You are allowed to be held. You are allowed to remember that you are not just the person who pays bills and meets deadlines and carries the world on your shoulders. You are also the child who tied yarn around their wrist and believed the moon would remember them. And the moon did remember. The moon is watching now. Through your window, smiling its crescent smile, holding its silver thread that connects you to every beautiful thing you thought you lost. You didn't lose it. It was just waiting. And now, you're home. Good night, my love. The green door, the door that wasn't there yesterday, is open now. It will stay open. Step through whenever you need to come home. Whenever the world is too loud. whenever you forget how to fly, whenever you need to be reminded that magic is real and you are loved and rest is not a luxury, it's a sacred thing you've always, always deserved. The passage is lit with fireflies. The rooms are full of your memories. Kept safe, kept warm. The lantern keeps burning. For you. In. Out. In. Out. Sleep now. Sleep. The lantern is lit for tired souls.